Mr. Roll, how are you?
How are
Good
you?
to see you. How are things?
Very well.
Good.
Very well.
Every child is potentially at risk. Children of upper middle class families, children who live in homes that the parents own, become lead poisoned.
In fact, some 24 million homes in the United States contain lead paint. And in those homes, nearly 1 million children have ingested enough lead to cause irreversible damage to their developing bodies, including hearing loss, kidney problems, and developmental delays.
But its greatest effect, the effect that has the greatest impact on children, is what it does to the developing brain. If a child is exposed to lead at the age of 1 or 2 or 3, we're talking about what could be a permanent reduction in numbers of cells and the ways in which those brain cells communicate. And that's so important for optimal brain function.
Robert and Christine Rull hope they've done no such long-term damage to their own boys.
Huh? Do you take care of your little brother? Do you like him?
4-year-old Joe and 11-month-old Kevin were poisoned by Dad's renovations of the family home.
Yeah, I did some scraping, and worse than that, I did some burning out in the porch area out here.
Robert didn't realize that his home contained lead paint, and by burning it with an open flame torch, he was producing lead particles small enough to inhale. And since inhaling lead is even more hazardous than swallowing it, the whole family's lead levels shot up quickly, the baby's most of all.
Developmentally, things are going well. He's drinking from his bottle, which is great. Getting new words. new words.
He said auntie this weekend.
Uh-huh.
Joseph? No, he doesn't say Joseph yet. He's working on it.
I walked around with my head down. What parent wants to put their children in danger, you know? And I did it completely accidental. I wasn't educated on lead at all.
The Rulls were lucky in one respect. 2 weeks after Dad started renovations, his son Joe was due for a routine physical. His pediatrician detected his elevated blood lead levels.
Could have been a lot worse. I could have started burning 2 weeks after the physical instead of 2 weeks prior to his physical. So.
Even in homes where no renovations are taking place, there may be numerous sources of lead exposure. Older plumbing systems may contain lead pipes or pipes soldered with lead. Antique toys or furniture may have been painted with lead-based paint. Hobby materials, folk remedies, and ceramics, particularly ceramics produced in other countries, may all contain lead. Paint chips are an obvious source, and most importantly, lead dust, harmful levels of which a child can ingest simply by putting his hands in his mouth.
It truly is the #1 culprit in exposing children to lead because it's everywhere, it's invisible, it's concentrated, and it's easily absorbed.
In fact, in homes built before 1978, when the sale of lead paint was banned, lead dust can be created from normal wear and tear, like opening and closing a window.
As you see the chipping and whatnot.
Despite the tremendous damage lead can do to a developing body, children often don't show any symptoms until they reach school age, when their developmental problems may become obvious.
And that's why screening is so important. That's why it's so important for parents to ask and for pediatricians to perform a blood test for lead in any child who's at risk for exposure.
The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends having your infant tested for lead poisoning at 6 months of age, and then yearly if your child lives or spends a lot of time in a high-risk neighborhood. Such neighborhoods may contain many older houses with lead paint or plumbing, or they may be home to industries that release lead into the environment. Ask your pediatrician what the risk factors are for your child. If a child is found to have high levels of lead in his blood, several steps must be taken. The first is to safely remove the lead source.
#2 is to optimize nutrition. Adequate intakes of milk, yogurt, cheese, other sources of calcium are key. We know that calcium and iron are very protective in terms of preventing that lead level from going higher.
Step 3 is medication. So-called chelating medicines bind to lead so it can be excreted from the body. Kevin is taking a chelator, which his parents mix into his milk.
Hopefully it's going to do what it's supposed to do.
What's his bottle?
Do you want a bottle?
Unfortunately, chelators are not appropriate for every child. And they may not reverse damage that already has occurred in cases of severe lead intoxication.
It's one of the reasons that lead exposure in every sense of the word is a chronic illness.
Oh, my baby, my huggies.